Hello, everybody. Today we're going to talk a little bit about rebuilding your gut, especially if you came from a carnivore dieting history or you just came off an antibiotic. So, the carnivore diet is very similar to an antibiotic in that it destroys your microbiome, not just the bad bugs, which we love the effects of that, but it also starves your good bacteria, your probiotics. And so, this is why I talk so much about paying attention to how long you're going to do a carnivore diet. If you insist on doing carnivore diet or you have to do it for whatever reason, because we have to eventually repopulate the gut. And if you don't, it's as if you're basically on an antibiotic type lifestyle for an extended period of time, depending on how long you do it. So if you are coming off the carnivore diet or you got what you got out of it and now you realize that it's not the best long-term approach, how do we rebuild the microbiome? Your gut does not need another extreme here, right? We need to rebuild smartly, building tolerance to being able to digest carbohydrates and sugars and fibers. And we want to slowly increase variety, and we want to give the body stability and resilience so that it can use up all the antioxidants and the nutrients and thrive by having way more fuel coming into it, as opposed to constantly restricting. Eventually, with long-term carnivore, you're initially in a stress state, but the longer you are in that stress state, the more you now have more gut issues, because long-term stress eventually leads to intestinal permeability, also known as leaky gut. So now we're back to where we started, right? All right, here we go. This is my 35-pound transformation. If you don't know a little bit about my history, I've struggled with a lot of eating disorders, which finally I'm done with that, especially since quitting the carnivore diet. Not even marginal symptoms of food addiction or binge eating or anything like that, or food noise. And so this is my 35-pound transformation. Actually, it's more, it's like 42, because the 35 pounds is really by raising my baseline dopamine, lowering my body weight set point. But since quitting carnivore and reintroducing carbs, I dropped another 7 pounds. And then you can see here also that I was featured on the first ever carnivore documentary series called Reverse TV. And that was back when I was still doing carnivore. But since then, I've quit carnivore, and I really don't recommend it for a lot of folks, and especially not as a long-term strategy. But I do have a PhD in exercise physiology and nutrition from the University of Miami, and I've taught at the University of Miami and Miami-Dade College and DeVry University and the American College of Sports Medicine and so many other places. And now I'm focused on research and sharing my message online and coaching my clients. So what healing the gut actually means. What does it mean to heal the gut? It means to have a thriving microbiome. It means to have probiotics, the good stuff in our gut. It doesn't mean starve them forever, right? And also, another major factor that determines how healthy and strong your gut health is gut motility. So you want to boost gut motility, and unfortunately, on a carnivore diet, gut motility really slows down a lot. You'll notice one of the most popular topics in the carnivore community is constipation, and that is a direct result of a very slow gut motility, which was one of the worst things really that you can do for your gut health. And remember, gut health is the single most important thing for all of the systems, the health of all of the systems in your body. So you want more gut motility, better gut motility, not less. And you want less symptoms or no symptoms, really. And we're going to talk a little bit about these. So we don't want to do a cleanse or take miracle powders or restrict forever and ever until we have now even more leaky gut, and now we can't even handle histamine, like we can't even handle ground beef, right? So people end up eventually not even being able to eat the one food that is the ideal food, right? Supposedly red meat, and they can't even have ground beef now. They have to have lamb because it is the lowest in histamine. And that's because you start to develop those food intolerances. You start to develop the histamine intolerances when you restrict and you stick to carnivore for an extended period of time. So when do we know we're winning and we're healing the gut? Is when you can consume the vast majority of foods and carbs and sugars and fiber at higher and higher levels. And this is really what the primal populations had, right? A lot of fiber intake. Before the agricultural revolution, primal populations would consume 150 grams of fiber a day. With the agricultural revolution that occurred 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, that dropped to around 60 grams a day. And then when people started eating the standard American diet, that's when it really dropped to like 11 grams, really low. So we want to try to get it at least to 25 grams of fiber per day. Ideally, a little bit higher, 35, 45 grams, but you can't go from no fiber to high fiber. You have to build the gut. It's just like doing a deadlift. You don't go from not working out to lifting a 500-pound deadlift, right? You have to slowly build strength in your systems, slowly rebuild the gut. So phase one, you want to calm the system first, right? So you want to have regular meals. Regular meals really help with boosting your gut motility. Hydration and sodium also help with gut motility. Protein at meals, we all agree, right? Protein. 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight is what you want to shoot for. And you want to stop the restrict binge pendulum, right? You want to stop branding foods as terrible foods or good foods and bad foods. And you're either on it 100% or you're off the rails and you're binging and you're feeling guilty and you're gaining weight and you're destroying your health. We don't want to do that. That's an eating disorder, right? Which I know a lot of you carnivores have that. So if digestion is chaotic, stability beats heroics, right? So we want to stabilize the system first. So we don't just quit carnivore and eat whatever we want. We want to slowly go through the phases, slowly build our gut health. So rebuild fiber slowly. So after a very low fiber eating or really zero fiber on the carnivore diet, a huge fiber jump can backfire. So you want to add about 3 to 5 grams of fiber every 3 to 4 days, maybe even slower, depending on your history. If you do cardio, you're probably going to be able to go through the phases a lot faster because cardio in and of itself speeds up the gut motility. And the better you get at cardio, the more cardiovascularly fit you get, the better gut motility you have and the healthier your microbiome, right? And so you're going to be able to go through the phases. That's how I was able to do that when I quit carnivore the second time. Because the first time I quit carnivore, I didn't know what I was doing and I freaked out and I went back to carnivore. But the second time I really planned it out and I researched and I went through the phases and I was able to push through the phases very quickly because I maintained cardiovascular activity. Of course, I also lift, but the cardio is really important as well. So you want to use cooked fruit and vegetables first. So we don't go into raw fruits and vegetables immediately. And also I wouldn't start with vegetables. I would start with sugars first, ideally, or starches. For most people, sugars first, unless you have fructose malabsorption. I believe the video I posted right before this one is where I talk about fructose malabsorption. So if you have that, then you would have to start with starches. But we start with easily digestible carbohydrates, low fiber, and then we add the fiber in the later stages. The long-term target for the vast, like the bare minimum that you want to get to is to get to 14 grams of fiber per 1,000 calories. So if you're consuming 2,000 calories a day, you want to be ingesting 28 grams of fiber per day. That's bare minimum to know that you're not deficient in fiber, whereby your body's struggling to create those short-chain fatty acids. And you need those short-chain fatty acids like butyrate and propionate, and you don't get them in ketosis. I know we all thought for a long period of time from very well-respected ketogenic researchers, right, on big stages where they would tell you it's okay, the beta-hydroxybutyrate, the major ketone that we test in our blood to ensure we're in ketosis, like that beta-hydroxybutyrate, that's going to feed your gut cells. But it doesn't really do a good job as compared to butyrate that can only come from the fiber you consume. so that your probiotics feed on that fiber and create the butyrate. So two different molecules, and no, you cannot replace one for the other. All right, your easiest fiber ladder. You'll start out with basic, easy to digest sugars, right? So you can do kiwi, oats, chia, cooked carrots. Kiwi and oats and chia might be too much for some folks. So you might just need to start with simple sugars first. Or if you have fructose malabsorption, then simple starches first. So maybe start with cooked carrots and try that out first, right? And then the next ladder, we can introduce things like potatoes, berries, lentils, beans. You can see we went up drastically in the fiber content. So when you do introduce beans, start with very tiny amounts. You don't go and you have 1 cup of beans immediately, right? The way that I did it, I went all in, and then I realized, okay, beans, let's start with just a 1/4 cup. And in just like 2-3 days of 1/4 cup beans, I was able to then go up to 2 cups almost immediately. So thankfully, I was able to rebound very quickly. And maybe because growing up, I ate a lot of that. So my microbiome is already used to digesting beans and legumes. And to know if you're digesting them well, you should not have gas. You should not have any cramping or bloating. And that was a major hurdle in my mind for, being just brainwashed for so long on keto and carnivore, especially carnivore, to reintroduce beans and legumes was a huge deal for me, because I thought, oh my gosh, am I going to have gas now? Newsflash, you don't, as long as you're going through the progression in the right way, right? Because if you're having gas or cramps, then that means you're not ready. You need to support your gut health a little bit more before you can digest the beans and the legumes. And then you go up to whole grains, cruciferous vegetables. Cruciferous vegetables are things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, all those things, nuts and seeds. If you flare up, you go one step backwards, right? Or you just minimize the portion sizes, and you don't be scared like I was, and prolong the metabolic damage that carnivore leads to. Just know that, okay, you got a little too ambitious there. Just go back one step and reduce portion sizes, or go back to simple sugars, right? Or just cooked starches, and then go back up and at a slower pace. Again, cardio really just speeds up everything so much. Alrighty. Fermented foods, if you're going to include some fermented foods, we always start with very tiny dosages, right? So just like maybe even half a tablespoon of sauerkraut before you go up to a tablespoon, and then 2 tablespoons of sauerkraut, a 1/4 cup kefir or yogurt. And then you only build if tolerated, if you have no issues, obviously, with dairy. If you're getting histamine reactions, that's a big thing, right? A lot of folks on carnivore diet, the longer we do carnivore, then we develop food intolerances and we develop histamine intolerances, right? So many folks are having mast cell activation and histamine intolerance from carnivore diet. And so that means if you are flaring up when you're introducing foods high in histamines, like fermented foods, that we still need to seal the gut before we can reintroduce fermented foods or probiotics or anything that's high in histamine. Okay. Plant diversity matters. The more different variations of plant foods you consume, the wider the diversity of your microbiome. And the microbiome diversity is one of the top things that tell me whether you have a strong, healthy gut or not. So you want 20 to 30 different plant foods per week. That's a good goal to shoot for. So look at different types of plants, like different types of herbs and spices and legumes, different nuts, different seeds, different oats. There is one oat. You know what I mean. Different kinds of berries, they all count, right? Diversity, really important. The best overall pattern, turns out, newsflash, Mediterranean diet. And the reason why everybody kind of shuts off when they hear that is because they've just... anything that you've heard over and over and over again tends to be very powerful. The basics are the most powerful, but because we hear them so often, we kind of shut off, right? It's like we don't even absorb that information. It's like, no, that can't be. I need carnivore. Carnivore is like the new shiny little kid on the block, right? They know what they're doing. So, and it's only after you go through that process and you need to destroy your metabolism and cortisol gets jacked up and your hormones are all out of whack and your digestion comes to a halt and you can't sleep at night. That's when then you come back and you have a newfound appreciation for evidence-based nutrition, for the wealth of data that we have that all point to the same thing: Mediterranean diet, a wide variety of foods, a lot of fiber, plant foods, and animal foods. We're not restricting really. But that's a whole other rant for a different day. So the best overall pattern is a Mediterranean type diet. You want to enjoy your olive oil. Olive oil is great because it's really high in polyphenols. Polyphenols are a type of antioxidant, specifically feeds a type of bacteria called Akkermansia. So polyphenols that are found in olive oil feed Akkermansia. And when you have a healthy population of Akkermansia in your gut, it seals leaky gut. It's like one more tool to speed up the healing of the gut so you don't have leaky gut or intestinal permeability where you're now reacting to random foods and you're reacting to histamine, so that you no longer have food intolerances or histamine intolerances. So olive oil, legumes and beans, fish, omega-3s are great. Fruits and vegetables, whole grains, fermented dairy if tolerated. I would add in, poultry. I would add in red meat. I would add in all those things. We're not restricting here. For the fat macros, we're not going to talk about, weight loss and body composition right now. But generally speaking, if you're not working out, if your metabolism is still very slow from keto or carnivore history, you can't go and do a lot of fat, right? You want to keep the fats very low. And then increase the fats as you speed up the metabolism over time, right? And you can speed up your metabolism with workouts. That's the fastest way to speed up your metabolism. Lift weights and do cardio, and you speed up the metabolism, and now you don't have to restrict fat too much. Then you can have the carbs and the fats and the proteins. Alrighty. Do not build your gut around supplements, right? A lot of data shows that, just taking probiotics and supplemental probiotics is not always like the solution. It's so much more effective to grow your probiotics and your gut health with prebiotics. In other words, with real food that feeds the gut bugs, the probiotics in our gut. So food diversity first, extra second, because also sometimes if you overdo the probiotics, sometimes you might cause an imbalance in the different strains in the probiotics in your gut, which is not always a good thing either. So you want to focus on food variety, which is why we mentioned in the previous slide 20 to 30 different varieties of plants is a good goal to shoot for. So the foundation is regular meals and fiber and plant variety, fermented foods if tolerated, and it's optional to add in some probiotics, targeted strains, not just any random probiotic. You want to know which strain you're putting back in for a short period of time, only if it fits your specific gut testing results. If bloating hits, do not panic, right? Don't go back and destroy your metabolism again. Don't just know that, okay, let's revise the plan to go back and reintroduce those foods at a different timeline or in different portions. So always reduce portions temporarily. Favor cooked produce first. Cooked foods first is easier to help your gut heal. Slow down meals. Consider a short low FODMAP trial. So you can do a low FODMAP type of diet for a short period of time if you start having IBS type symptoms initially, and that does not resolve by shrinking the portion sizes and going slower with the reintroduction. So that's really the pathway here. We want to expand over time, right? So the goal is tolerance, not another forever list of forbidden foods that keep making you weaker and weaker with more nutrient deficiencies, not to mention all of the metabolic damage and the flatlining of your dopamine and serotonin that occurs on carnivore. Lifestyle still moves the needle. Walking, ideally jogging, and even better running, progressive overload cardio. Nothing heals the gut faster than just doing cardio and getting better and better at cardio, meaning pushing with the intensity and duration over time. You know, even if you like forget about the diet, if you just do that, that alone is going to boost your microbiome health and shift the quality of the bacteria that live in your gut. It's going to give you way more of the good stuff, and it's going to starve the bad stuff. Just cardio alone. That's how powerful it is. Sleep, obviously, I don't have to remind you how powerful sleep is for keeping cortisol low and boosting mental health and recovery and all that good stuff. Keep your stress down, right? I mean, if there's something major that is not aligned in your life, no amount of diet or cardio is gonna work, right? You want to make sure that you have peace and joy in your life, and you're authentic to yourself and you're aligned. Regular routine, you know, just making sure you have the good habits in place. Consistency matters more than intensity. Get evaluated if you have red flags, if you see blood and stools, night symptoms, anemia, unintentional weight loss, fever, family history of irritable bowel disease, colon cancer, or celiac. Severe or persistent symptoms deserve a real workup, obviously. All right, so say a simple 8-week gut rebuild. You want to stabilize meals and hydration in week 1. Week 2, you want to add slowly the carbs. Oats and kiwi, chia, or cooked vegetables, or even better than that, I would say simple sugar is even better. And then after that, we introduce some starches that are cooked. To start with cooked first if you really want to go slow. And then week 3, you can add things like potatoes, berries, and yogurt. I would push the dairy for later also, but if you're fine with yogurt, great. By week 3. Week 4, add beans, lentils slowly. Yes, beans and legumes, always push them towards the latter ends, towards the end stages, because they're so high in fiber, and your gut needs some time to adapt to the fiber. And then you want to add in olive oil, fish, fruit, vegetable diversity. So then you just work on diversity eventually, and you keep widening the variety. And then whatever works, you keep that in, and you trial a different food. So the big takeaway here is that your gut gets stronger from thoughtful reintroduction, not endless restriction, which eventually leads to more leaky gut and more intestinal permeability, amongst so many other negative effects. So you want to go slow, build variety, and stay consistent. All right, if you are ready to rebuild your gut without food fear, check out my coaching packages at drsarahzoliver.com/coaching. And also make sure you're signed up to my free newsletter at drsarahzoliver.com/newsletter so you don't miss any of the videos or any of the things that I am putting out. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this kind of content, make sure you let me know by giving this YouTube video a thumbs up, subscribing, and hitting that little notification bell icon so YouTube alerts you every time I post a new video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.